Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psych Reg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Berney Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back to day 5 of the Big Five. The Big Five. So today we're going to talk about neuroticism. And this is the last of the Big Five personality traits that we often think about and associate with this up-to-date, more modern perspective of and theory of personality.
Right. And I'm glad we've waited until the end to talk about neuroticism, because this is often the most difficult for students, at least, to grapple with, because they think of a neurotic, and they think like, are we talking about mental illness? Right. We're not talking about mental illness, because we're talking about normal personality development, not personality disorders. Right. Okay. And neuroticism is the most difficult for people to sort of grapple with. What do you mean by neuroticism? Right. So I'm glad we waited until the last day for this one. Yeah, and it's partially because you know what neuroticism is talking about is certainly one's proneness towards distress. Right. You know, are you the type of person who is anxiety prone? Not necessarily have an anxiety disorder, but are you prone to anxiety, to emotionality that kind of takes control of your interactions and your But you remember
choices.
The magic word that you used since the very beginning.
What's
Starts
that?
with a C. Continua.
Right. Okay. It is a continua.
And all of the 5 are on a continuum. Right. Each of them is on a continuum. Right. But it's easier to visualize extraversion and introversion, or conscientiousness and This one's a little more difficult but it's still this continuum. This continuum is that some people are prone to distress, more easily distressed, more easily stressed than others. Right. So it's the same, but we're still talking about a normal response. Right. Yeah. Right. Okay.
So you know, just as a final review of why it's important that we're talking about personality, we're talking about it because it is you. It is, you know, the way in which you're thinking about the world and looking at the world. And if you are prone towards neuroticism, if you are sort of on that high end of the spectrum on neuroticism, it certainly affects the way in which you interact with other people, the way in which you manage stress and life events and things going on in your life. And when it affects those things in your life, it's going to affect decision making. It's going to affect, you know, your overall functioning and your emotionality and all that kind of stuff.
Right, because personality is, it explains why you do the things that you do, and especially why and how you react to environmental events. Mm-hmm. And some people react in a very calm, take it as it comes in sort of approach, and others tend to get easily stressed, easily affected. And so there's a higher level of emotional response in some people than in others. There was that famous movie, Top Gun, where his sort of arch rival was a person called Iceman, because he had ice in his veins, because he didn't react to anything, whereas the Tom Cruise character was highly emotional. Right. Both normal, but at opposite ends of the...
Normal-ish.
Well, they were fighter pilots, so
That's
that
true.
automatically puts them into a
different category.
Right? But opposite ends of that continuum.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, there are those people who, you know, who we have in our lives who are relatively mentally healthy, but they are just, you know, high strung. Right. They are, you know, they get stressed relatively easy. They get overwhelmed relatively easy, and those are people they're down there on that more high end of the neuroticism.
High reactivity.
Right. And then you have those people who don't react. Those people who you're looking at them and, you know, that something really bad in their life could be happening and they just don't respond much at all.
Could we be talking about you and me?
We could be.
I'm a little more reactive than you are.
You are.
It's because I care.
I agree.
No, it's true.
Because I'm agreeable.
I'm disagreeing. No, it's true. I tend to be a little more reactive emotionally than you are.
Yeah, I can tell. You can usually tell how you feel about things.
Right.
You kind of can read it on your demeanor. And
whether I want to or not.
Right.
I do.
Yeah.
And that's this whole thing about sometimes we don't realize we don't fully understand and know our personality traits, but others do.
Right.
Yeah, and that's one of them, because I don't intend to do that, but it just is.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So a few things about neuroticism, just sort of some of the characteristics and things we think about it. First off, of course, we've already talked about anxiety. Right. People on this spectrum, on this continuum, we have various levels of anxiety. And so on the higher end of neuroticism, we have much more proneness toward anxiety, whereas on the other end, people who are not prone towards anxiety at all. Other things but it's the same kind of response to anger, to depression, sort of to self-esteem and some of those kinds of things, vulnerability. All of those are things that fall on this same kind of continuum, where on one end you're much more prone towards those things, much more prone towards the depression, towards anger, towards frustration and irritability, and much feeling of being much more vulnerable. And then on the other end you have sort of a protective shell that prevents you from experiencing many of those traits. So.
And we talk about these qualities, neuroticism, and these are inborn. They're sort of not so much inherited as neurodevelopmental. They're sort of present at birth, and you need to know the important people in your life, whether it's a partner, a sibling, a child. Where are they on these on the continuum? Because if you have a child who tends to be highly reactive, they require a different approach than children who are less reactive. You can push the less reactive child. You can push a little more than the highly reactive child. So it's important to know where your significant others are on this spectrum.
One of the things that I think about when I think about this spectrum, this continuum, is drama.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We have those people in you can see it in siblings. You have one who, he's pretty even keel. He doesn't respond too much. Then you have the one sibling who is just attracted, drawn to, and creates drama.
Right.
Unnecessary drama sometimes, but just creates drama because it's got to be heightened emotionality. It's got to be engaging in that way.
That's where the energy comes from.
Exactly.
The drama energizes that.
And so, as we've talked about all 5 of these different personality traits from the big 5, it's sort of, in many ways, it's sort of exactly what you just said. Where you fall on those different continua indicates where you get energy from.
That's right.
The extroverted person gets energy from the outside. They draw that energy in, whereas the more introverted person, looks for energy from within. They create it themselves by being alone and being inside. People who are open to new experiences, or that openness to experiences, those on the high end of that, they really are engaged by these novel
I had a friend one time, and she would say, I can't wait to take, I think she did it at the end of each semester or a couple times a year, that she would just go off by herself. She was a wife and a mother and a job, but she would go off by herself for a day or two. And she said, isn't that wonderful? And I thought, that has no appeal at all to me, to go off by myself somewhere, because I get my energy from other people. I want to be around others, family members and family and friends, and then I can restore myself. But no, I never understood, but that's why, because she's on the other end of that spectrum.
Exactly. So regardless of where you are across these 5 different continua, it helps explain where you draw your energy from, and so it helps explain how you respond to things and how you just manage some of those life events, life stresses, and why sometimes we tend to seek out life experiences and sometimes life stresses. Those people who are, again, on that high end of the neuroticism scale, they tend to seek that emotional stimulation. While they are hyper reactive to it, there is this draw to it that seems to happen. So that's how it goes sometimes.
But I mean, I think people would it'd be well served if they looked up these big five,
right,
and look at each one of the five and try to figure out where you are,
right,
and to make decisions according to where you think you fall on these various factors.
Yeah.
So
there's
it'd be worth doing.
There's all kinds of links online. If you put in Neopi, Neopi, there's all kinds of links on the internet where you can go and you can take the test online, and it will tell you where you fall on them. And it, in the very least, it's informative for you and help you understand yourself a little bit better. Right. So yeah, it's fun stuff.
I would do that. I would take one of those little self-tests. Most of them are free. You don't have to pay for it. I wouldn't pay for it, but they're kind of fun to do, and you'll learn. I think you'll learn a great deal. You not only learn a great deal, you learn information that I think is going to be really useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is solid stuff. This isn't pop psychology or armchair psychology. This is the real deal. So
this is love seat psychology.
Yeah. This is what?
Love seat psychology. So you can sit back and relax.
Love seat.
You can spread out a little bit. It's not. You said it's not armchair psychology. It's more relaxing. Maybe lounge chair. No, none of those.
No.
I love it when I can throw you off like that.
He just leaves me speechless. Sometimes he just leaves me. I don't know where to go with it because it's like, where do I start?
That's fantastic.
But we don't often recommend things,
right?
But we recommend this because this is solid theorizing,
right.
And so we don't mind at all telling you to take a look at this.
Yeah, and I probably won't put a specific link in the show notes about that, just because I don't want it to make it look like up here that I'm advertising for something, and then somebody goes there and gets a virus or something on their computer, and then they get mad at me about it.
God knows we don't want.
No, we don't want that. So,
okay.
All right,
take a look at it. I think it's good.
It's a great idea. So, all right. Well, that is it for today. We finished
the big five.
We did finish the big five. And what I'm really excited about is because what we're going to do right next is we're going to record the podcast that will go out on Saturday.
Saturday's podcast.
The 25th. And that one is going to be about the history of personality theory. And so that's going to be a fun discussion. So
bring your notebooks to that one. It's going to be a good one. So bring a notebook so you can take notes.
That's right. So,
okay.
All right. Until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.